It's more work for the browser and it takes the time. And if you have those larger images than what's actually displayed in your website, in the place where that image appears, mobile devices have the hardest time because their browser has to resize that image too. So if you're taking an image that's supposed to be displayed at, say, 300 by 200, but you have a 1500 by 800 image, that's a lot of information that the browser has to resize in order for it to display. That's one of the reasons why slow loading pages happen. You look at them and you go, why is this page taking so long to load? That's a huge reason. So you want to find out the area, the image, the actual area that's going to be displayed. So if you uploaded an image and you displayed it, and then you looked on the front end, look to see how big that image is supposed to be. Well, you're going to ask me, how do you figure that out? So let's just go to a website. Let's just do a stupid search and see what we come up with. We don't want Wix. Well, let's just pick on Squarespace. Now, you see that they have a video, there's a slider, and they've got an image here. How about this image? If you look at this image, you want to find out what size this is. It's 800 by 500, and that is what's displayed. So that image was loaded correctly. If you had an image that was 1000 by 900, then the browser has to figure out how to resize this image and display it properly. And the same with every image of your website. Am I losing anybody so far? Kathy, you look like you're really you're struggling with this one. Do you want to take a look at your site or a different site and see if your images are the correct size?
Sure. What I didn't follow was when you, and my camera's kind of in the way, but you highlighted where that image was and you said, okay, well, it's the right size, but it didn't look to me like it was the right size. But yeah, you can certainly look at my site and see, because I think I've got problems with, and I'll just pop it into the chat.
Okay.
I think I got problems with slow loading based on images. I mean, I try to size them for what I think, like exactly what the image is, often like 500 by 500 or something, but
sometimes it's a pain to try to figure it out.
Well, it's not, I mean, I do my own site, so I mean, I know what the image size is. I just want to get it right.
Yeah. You can even just start with the first image. I've right-clicked on it and I'm going to inspect.
Okay.
And then I'm going to hold my mouse over the link to that image, and it's 384 by 150.
Okay.
And it looks like that's about the size that you have displayed. So that one was uploaded correctly. Now, let's see if we can go to a different one. Do the same thing with this one. And that one is not telling me.
275 by 382 or something.
Well, that one says 1010, but I don't believe that. Now in Firefox, I have another thing that's called a little page info. I'll switch my share. And this tells me all about the media on your pages. So I don't even have to go through them. So that one is the same size. This one, it's a little bit larger than what's being displayed, but not a lot. And that's the one I was trying to find. It's 380 by 252 is the right size. You've got, and what's being displayed is 374 by 246. So that would be one of those things. It's not a lot. It's a few pixels either direction. But every time that you can shave off pixels, that's taking off load time. So it's going to help just a little bit, but everything helps. So let's go down to the next picture. Same thing, it's just barely off. So you're darn close on all of your images.
And so what do I need to do? Set the image size in the image element?
No, you would actually literally resize the image itself.
Okay.
So this image is supposed to be 374 by 246. So you would take that image on your computer, on your desktop, and resize it to 374 by 246 and replace that with the image that's currently in the site.
Okay. Why does it think it's 380 by 252? Why couldn't I update my webpage to say, oh, by the way, the image is actually 374 by 246?
Well, you can do it that way too, but that's part of the template or whatever you're using to display the page. However, it's been coded. It's coded to display this particular size.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can go in and try to change that in whatever you use to develop the site, to develop the template, or if it's a template itself. Usually if it's a template that you purchased or you got for free, there's little chance of being able to make those dimension changes.
Oh
So
yeah.
you
So I
still-
just, mine's in .NET. So I could, okay, thank you. I can make the change if I
Yeah.
just have to do it.
And yours is darn close, so I wouldn't say that it's a problem. I'd say that that's just a good example of, okay, it's a little bit off. And when you really want to make sure that it's correct, then upload it at that particular size.
Okay. Thank you.
And let me stop sharing for just a second. Barbara, you had a question. Or you had your hand up anyway. I guess if I asked you to unmute, you could talk.
So I have a lot of problems with my photos on my website, and I have a lot of photos, as you know.
Mhm.
But in particular, one of my issues, and I'm not sure if it's solvable or not, is that on my individual listings for items, I have a zoom, and the zoom has to, the photo, in order for the zoom to work, the photo has to be a certain size, and that size, I believe, is not what the box is.
There's a display size and then there's a zoom size.
Correct.
Yeah. And usually, depending on the software that you're using, it's going to take a larger picture, make it smaller to fit in the space. And then when you mouse over it, you hover it, it's going to make it larger, looking like it's coming at you. Is that right?
Correct.
So in that instance, how much larger is it making it? And the other side of that coin is because it's making it, well, let's see. That's one of those that I'd have to look and see how it's done. Arthur may have a spin on that too, because I know when you zoom something, you do need that larger picture, unless the software that you're using allows you to use two different pictures, one for what's displayed and then one that's going to be used for the zoom.
Well, it really depends on the format that you're using. I know, with WordPress, it makes, whenever you upload a picture, it makes 3 other sizes
Mm-hmm.
to be displayed in various application. Now Barbara, she's using Magento, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not real familiar how Magento does it, but I mean, when it gets bigger, does it blur or anything? I'm not
No.
understanding the problem.
Well, we're talking about sizes and having an image that's too big for what's actually displayed. So the kink, if you will, for making sure that you have an image that's uploaded to fit the right size that's being displayed. If you're using Zoom, it's going to use a different size because it's generally using a larger image, but you see a smaller one. When you mouse over it, it shows you the full image size.
Right.
Yeah, it'll scale it up. I mean, the software will scale it up, automatically when it does that.
I've tested it, and in order for it to zoom, it needs a bigger size than I think what the parameters are.
well,
Right.
then you just upload a bigger size then.
Well,
You know what I mean?
which I have, but then all of my photos across the whole website are all much bigger than,
How much bigger? 10 pixels each side? I mean.
oh no, bigger. I mean, like
Really?
100, like I'd have to do exactly what you were just doing to go and see what, you know, do a test. I don't know if you
Right.
want to look at it or not.
Well, when you're, if Magento is saying the zoom size needs to be 100 pixels in both directions larger than the actual spot displayed, I'd find that rather interesting. I can see it getting a little bigger, but 100 pixels or more means that's making a gigantic picture. Let me ask you this, can you control the size of the zoom? How much, what's the zoom factor?
Yeah, so I think without you know going and spending time doing this, but I think when I did it, the zoom is pretty significant to look at details when you zoom on the picture. And if I recall, when I make it the size of the container, it kind of just makes the whole picture bigger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like the whole picture just gets bigger, but it doesn't zoom enough to look at the detail.
Oh, so it's mandating that you have it, much larger.
Yeah,
Even that much larger, still not showing you the detail, correct?
yeah, it's mandating that it needs to be larger, yeah. I
To
mean,
look at the detail.
yeah, so I mean, there has to be, I mean, if it's telling you you have to have a bigger image, and of course you got to use a bigger image. I mean, what we're saying is not necessarily written in stone. I mean,
Right.
it's the situation that you're in. For the average website, it's best to size the image to the container. Now, if you're a photographer or something like that, then of course you're going to want bigger images. WordPress norm is 2024 pixels, and that's what it accepts. So if you're a photographer, if you want detail, then of course you're going to have larger images. But
Is there anything, I mean, should I change the size of the container? And this goes back to, Kathy was talking about
I
that.
would do it differently, but I don't know the options that you have with Magento. In my mind, if you zoomed and it increased the size a little bit, because the image that you have in there is slightly larger, maybe 40 or 50 pixels each direction in the dimensions, but you want to have good detail, I'd have a thumbnail off to the side if showing various parts of that image, so that you can click on that to pop up a new image that shows the detail of that area. And then you
And not have a zoom
another
at all?
thumbnail. Pardon?
And not have a zoom at all?
Well, you can still keep the zoom, but does your zoom provide good detail that you want? Or do you still have, well, it's zoomed, but it's not showing me as much detail as I want to see?
yeah, it really depends on how Magento is formatted.
Mhm.
Because if it's an e-commerce platform, so I'm assuming that it creates its own thumbnails for the smaller images. So whatever size image that you upload, it uses that as the basis. And if the image is only so large, then of course it's only going to magnify so much.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not real familiar with Magento, but I do know e-commerce formats, and they do create their own thumbnails and stuff. But I mean, if you're not getting the detail that you want for the magnification, then you're going to have to upload larger images.
Right. And that's what I've done, but it was a real burden on the loading.
That's
what you do is you convert.
It's the one thing that always comes up when I run a
Page speed.
page speed thing, yeah, is that my
Okay,
photos aren't optimized correctly, and it's because they're too big for the containers. I mean,
Well,
that's one of the
Magento-
problems.
there should be a way to optimize your images with Magento. There should be a plugin or something like that to where you can, with WordPress, you can use Imagify or Short Pixel, and you can actually compress and convert the images to WebP with that plugin on WordPress.
Well,
Now,
that's,
in your,
yeah, that's,
I mean, in your case, what I would do is I would take the larger image and I would convert it to a WebP.
Right.
Yeah,
and
I mean-
we've had that discussion, and I've upgraded my my platform to from 2.3 to 2.4 or whatever, because the 2.3 didn't have a WebP
Right.
application. So hopefully that will maybe take care of that, converting everything to a WebP. But I know Thomas and I have gone over my photos in the past, trying it with WebP and not, and it didn't seem to make a huge difference because I have them optimized already. But the big thing was the size of the photos that I needed to upload because of that Zoom.
yeah.
And I
Well,
just didn't know if there was a way to,
Well, you're dealing with Magento.
yeah.
It's not WordPress. So whatever the limitations are of Magento, and then whatever your server is, I mean, your hosting could have a lot to do with it too. I mean, if you have cheap hosting and it's not fast, then of course you're going to have a load problem that way too. So, I mean, it may not just, I mean, if you've already converted the images to WebP and you've done everything necessary, then the problem's somewhere else,
Okay.
So, I mean, who would you have for hosting?
In Motion. But I'm also on Cloudflare. I have it,
Well, that shouldn't be a problem then. So,
yeah. No, it's pretty fast. I think it's just the sheer amount of visuals, and over the course of 1,000 photos, like you said, every pixel, 100 pixels on each photo adds up to a lot of extra.
That's why I was suggesting if you have the area and the capability within Magento to have an area that's got some thumbnails, 2 or 3 thumbnails, you can make those really small and say, click for more detail, so that it pops up a large image that you can easily see whatever image. It could be the full screen for that matter.
Well, it does. And I think they resize. I think it gets resized because there are thumbnails. And I think
I understand what Thomas is saying.
Yeah.
And basically in order to do that, the e-commerce that she's running, the store is actually archived. So I don't think she would have to create a whole new store page to create the thumbnails to pop up the image, because the product does its own imaging. So I'm not sure if you could create a thumbnail to use as, I mean, I'd have to put my brain to it, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I don't think she has that ability with Magento.
It's just one of those things. And so everybody understands, she has a website that is about dresses. So it's all clothing. And you don't want to have a little tiny picture to show off this really nice dress. So you want to have a fairly good sized picture, but you can start with a small one. And we're talking about how the best way to get a large image so you can see the detail of these dresses. And that's where she's kind of stuck. And most people don't have that issue, but we're saying a lot of this depends on the platform that you're using. And unless we deal with WordPress and Joomla, so we're well versed in all the things that are capable there. But Magento, it does have some drawbacks. So, and I don't know the most recent version, but there may be something along the lines of what we're suggesting of using thumbnails to get the large picture. But as Arthur was saying, if the system is set up that anytime that you have a thumbnail, it's going to make a gigantic picture out of it when you click on it, then this little picture may be out of focus when you're trying to load it with Magento.
Right.
So that's one of those things that you'd have to play with. I'd have to study to see what's available in there to see
Right.
whether you can do this or that. What's the best option? I can only make suggestions, just like Arthur, but we don't know until we get in there and take a look to see what's possible.
Okay.
It wouldn't take very long, because if you can put a thumbnail in someplace, add a small thumbnail, have that link to a huge picture, and see what happens with Magento.
Right.
And then you take it from that point.
Okay. Well, I'll keep working on it. I actually dropped a link in the chat that I came across from Manta about Google Business Profile photo sizes, which was very illuminating, since it's, probably, Google's best practices. So people might be wanting to,
Interesting. Well,
Yeah,
while we're
I
on
thought
the subject, first let me get to Kathy. Kathy, you had something? You had your hand up? Oh, guess I need to unmute you again. There you go. Sorry. There you go. Now you're unmuted.
All right. I just, for what I've done is I've hard coded my website, and I just looked at my web code, and it sets the width to 380 by 252. That's the exact. I went to the JPEG, and that's exact image width and height. So it's getting resized. And what I'm wondering is, I thought I'm doing the best practice by actually telling exactly what the size of the picture is. And I'm wondering if I'm messing myself up by, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, because
Correct.
I don't know how
Correct.
with the responsive design with the, a phone, is that getting in the way and delaying?
Very good point. For everybody, you should understand this. If you put specific dimensions, now WordPress has another thing, and I know Arthur's chomping and he's going to say that it depends, it's going to take care of the images for you. But generally speaking, if you put the dimensions on an image, that means that's the size every device will display. So if you've got an 800 by 300, it's going to take over the entire screen of a mobile device, because it's not resizing. That's not responsive. When you put the dimensions of the image in your code, now you're no longer a responsive image.
Okay, so I get that piece. So what should, but my images, I mean, I start with huge images, and then I've been, using software to just shrink them down. So what is the ideal image size that I should have on my site, and then let it dink around with whatever it wants to size it to?
First of all, you want to remove the image dimensions in your code. Never put image dimensions on anything. Leave that to the template or the platform. It's going to see and take care of that, especially WordPress, because if you upload one picture, it creates 3. So it has one for desktop, one for medium-sized mobile devices, one for small devices. Or is it 4, Arthur? 3 or 4?
It's 4.
Yeah, and I just got like one image file, because it's a Microsoft.net site where that's all I have.
Right. Well, when you're like I say, the dimensions itself, you don't want the dimensions in there, but the platform is going to take care of what size should that image be. If you're in a build-a-site and they're saying this is the size of it, well, it's kind of hard, because it depends on the platform. In general, if you have a space, it has a specific dimension that it's going to require. And then for any other device, because you don't have the dimensions in there, it's going to resize accordingly.
Okay.
Yeah, generally,
Go ahead.
when I put sites together, I generally make all the portrait images, You know, your portrait style images, I make them all the same. I usually make between 600 by 800 or 450 by 600. You know, and keep the images consistent. You know, don't crop them in weird shapes. You know, make them real skinny and, you know, I mean, I try to keep the dimensions within a 4:3 ratio. You know, and because that's normally what a camera takes. You know, and it's, you know, it's coded the way it should be. You know, so, and for background images, I'll go from 1400 pixels wide all the way up to 2000 pixel wide. You know, and you know, it just depends on what you're going to use the images for. So if you keep everything consistent, you should be okay. Like if you have 4 images across the front of the page, most times they're probably 600 by 450, 600 high by 450 wide. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you keep the consistency, you know, you should be okay. You know, it's when you start uploading 3000 by 4000 pixel images, the raw images and stuff, that's when you really start getting into trouble. You know, and then also what I do is I compress images and I convert them to WebP.
What's that mean?
It's a different format of the image. But when you go like this one's a JPEG, this priceless parenting. And if it was a WebP, although it's small enough that that's one of it's about that size, you have to try it. Instead of a JPEG, you can try PNG to see if it's smaller in weight, and I'll get to that in just a second, or WebP. When we talk about weight, the information in the pixels, the number of pixels, and the kind of information that's in the image itself adds weight. The larger the image, of course, it's got more information, which means it's a heavier image. But the browsers only provide up to 72 DPI in any image. Doesn't make any difference if you upload a 300 DPI image. Your browser is only going to show 72 DPI. So don't try to upload high quality images. It's a waste of time. When you have the image and you're testing to see which format is going to be the smallest in weight, WebP for larger image by far is going to be the smallest in weight. But when you get down to the size that you have here for this priceless parenting, PNG may be a little better than JPEG. WebP might be the smallest, but it's the size of this particular image that you'll just have to try each of them, which means saving each of them in that other format. Now, do you have that capability?
Yep, I can try it.
Okay,
what tool are you using you're switching between looking at a laptop versus a phone view?
Oh, yes. Folks, for anybody who wants to see what their website looks like, in Firefox and in Chrome, Chrome does it just a little bit differently, but generally over in your settings, in Firefox, under more tools, you can go to responsive design mode, and you can select whichever size that you wish. So you can add more to the list by clicking on edit. So I've got quite a few of the most popular, especially the iPhone tablets, because there are a lot of sites that have problems with them. They're just not sizing properly. But once you select any, you can go through and say, well, I want to look at it in an iPad. And it shows you what it looks like in an iPad. This is the iPad iOS. And if you have an iPad Pro, looks almost exactly the same. But
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, this is also a way you can check to see if your website is responsive for mobile. Because a lot of times, if you're using a certain theme or something like that, you'll see titles off the page or pictures that are that's when your site is not mobile responsive. That's what this tool is one of the things it's for, is to check to see different devices.
And we can see, but we already know why, that your image here, which is the parenting class for ages 0 to 5, the image is running off the right side of the screen on this mobile device.
Mhm.
That's because you said, make that image X size. So if you hadn't put the dimensions in that image, it would have resized automatically. Now, this is in the iPhone 12 and 13. That's what these images are going to look like. They're running
It could
off
be
the
the-
right side.
It could be the template too.
She hard coded.
Oh,
Mhm.
it is? Oh, okay.
She hard coded the dimensions for the images.
Yeah, in that case, then you would have to use a different size image then.
Right, but it sounds like the better idea is to get rid of the dimensions.
Take the dimensions out and test again. If that worked, leave, and I would never put the dimensions in any image in a site. That used to be the old way. You had to do that. Not
Okay,
today.
yeah, I come from the old
Well, yeah, I started hand coding back in '96. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. If you're used to that, it's difficult to say, don't put the dimensions in. It's like, wait, I have to. Nope, not anymore. The template that's being served in the browser, they all understand what it's supposed to do. So a smaller device means it's going to be smaller. Now,
Okay.
a lot of that has to do with the CSS. And I won't get into that, but if you've got
Right.
a good system and the CSS is written correctly, then it's going to resize the images for the smaller devices.
Okay, yeah, then that helps. Thank you. I've got,
Yeah.
it's slow loading. My site is slow loading on mobile devices, and so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I think the images are part of the problem.
Usually it's a big part of the problem. And the first thing
Yeah.
you want to do is, like, when we have last week we talked about performance, and the first place to go is page speed insights. Now you can use Lighthouse. I've seen more consistently the numbers be better with page speed insights, more accurate.
Okay.
And you can also use Incognito, which is part of Chrome, to make sure that you take away everything having to do with the browser, so nothing else is messing with it. And
Yeah,
yes, you do have images. Your time to interact is 11.8 seconds. Although you're only going to save 3 by JavaScript, doesn't look like it's talking that much about your images. So when you read down through these things, click on the ones that says where you have a problem. Now, you're on a Build-A-Site. You're on this Microsoft Build-A-Site, correct?
I guess so. I'm on a .NET site. So run through discount ASP.NET.
But did you use, you said something about Microsoft, so it sounded to me like you were using a Microsoft platform to build your site. Was that correct?
Yeah, but I'm coding it myself. You're right. I mean, I
Gotcha.
use, yeah, it's up, so I can connect to their database. It's a .NET, not just a plain HTML. It's the ASP files.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the biggest thing that it's showing right here is you could say shave just about 3 seconds off if you could get rid of a lot of that code that's not being used at first. But when you're using a platform where you build the site, and that's true with Squarespace, Weebly, Wix, all those things, GoDaddy, you don't have control over any of that stuff. Only in an independent site do you have that much control. Third party blocked. So you could just, if you go through the different things, it'll show you where there are problems. And when you see that you can save, like this one was 2.57 seconds, yeah, you'd want to do something about that if you can.
Okay.
Oh, and also, I'm going to keep going over this so everybody understands. This doesn't mean that she's got a 92% for her overall SEO. there are only certain things that it's checking. And there are things that don't really have a darn thing to do with your text on the page. And that's where your SEO is important. So whatever number that you see for SEO here, it's not including the content. It's just the document title, the meta description. It's got HTTP status code, technical things. So it's talking about the technical side of SEO, not what you would control. Hope everybody understands the difference there. Susan, you had a question. And I'll unmute you. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned the meta description.
Mhm.
And my question is, whenever I upload new photos to my website and I have to give a description, is it better to, I draw caricatures at parties. Is it better to have it described as caricature by Susan Moreno, or is it better? Okay, what's the best way to do that?
When you have an image, it's in a page. What's the subject of that page?
Special events that I've worked at.
Is it a WordPress site?
Yeah, it is. But I'm using MotoPress. You said you don't know about it. You've never heard of it. But anyway.
You were the one with that.
I'm sorry?
That was you who has that platform. That's an odd duck for us.
Yes, and I'm gonna not do that anymore. I'm gonna. It's not easy to use. It's kind of just not easy. So I'm gonna check out the Elementor and see if that would be a better. But I still need to know what is the best way to describe my picture.
Okay, so the reason I asked about what's on the page, let me just grab something. And let's just say this page.
Okay.
That it's nothing that any of us know. It's not somebody's website here. The images that are in the page should have something directly related to what's on the page. And you can see there's only a few images other than the ads over on the right side. So this is Google My Business, which it's not called that anymore. It's Google Business Profile nowadays. But that image is all about Google Business Profile. Google My Business is what it was. So if I saw a caricature there, and this whole page is about Google Business Profile, it has nothing to do with that page. So that's not what you want to do. If you have an image that's not related to the page, but you have it there for a reason, what's the reason?
Well, the reason is I upload new samples. Whenever I work a job, I take photos of the person holding a caricature and I'll upload it and I'll say, drew caricatures at this wedding. Everybody loved their drawings. And then I upload the photo, but I wasn't sure how to describe the photo because it'll ask to name it. And basically the page is to show new pics of events that I'm doing throughout the year.
Right. When you name an image, when you have a description of the image, specifically the alt tag, in the alt tag, it's asking, what is this image about? We're not interested in why you took the picture. It's specifically asking you, what is this image about? This particular image is about Google My Business. Let's see if they have an alt tag here. It's got data, it's got a URL. And this particular one does not have an alt tag or a description. So generally speaking, that's not the norm for a site, although I'm sure a lot of people will just upload the image and don't put a description or the alt. The idea is that if you have an image in the page, relate it to the site. So for you, if you got a caricature with somebody standing there, this is a caricature of Fred as we that I had just finished drawing at whatever the affair was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I could say something like, this is a caricature of bride and groom at their wedding reception. Would that?
Yes. If that's exactly what the picture is about, then yes, that's true.
Okay, yeah, well, it's all kind of different events, but do I mention that this is a caricature, or this is just, or this is a picture of? Can I say caricature?
You can say caricature.
Okay, so, and every time that I upload a new photo, it's gonna be basically the same. This is a caricature of so-and-so at a company picnic. This is a caricature of so-and-so at a trade show. This is a caricature, blah, blah, and then the event. Is that not, or?
Generally, that's true. Just
Yeah.
because it's good to have a variation, you can find a different way to describe it, still using, in caricature is the keyword that you're trying to get in there.
Yes.
And that's, you want to make sure that you're not just saying caricature, because that's not saying a thing and you're going to get penalized for that. You want to say caricature of Fred, or caricature of Fred and his new wife at their wedding.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fine. It tells you exactly what the image is, and it tells you how it's related to what's on the page as far as content.
Okay, so I just have to mix it up a little bit so it's not the same exact.
Yeah, you just use you know, different types of verbiage, although saying this caricature was about blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah, I have to think about it, because it's kind of hard to keep coming up with different ways to say the same thing, because basically I'm doing the same thing. Each picture is a caricature. The people are different, and the event venue or whatever, I mean, it can be a anniversary, birthday party. So basically I'm saying the same thing, but mixing it up a little bit, I guess.
Anniversary party with a caricature drawing of Susan and Jane, whatever. So it just coming up with ways to be able to change the verbiage around so that it doesn't sound so drone the whole time.
Yes.
The image is like the same thing, just changing the names.
And is it a good idea to upload photos every month or every 2 months?
You can upload them as much as you want. Are you switching the images? Are you changing? In other words, you had this image, now I'm putting a different image in that place. Is that what you're doing?
Yes, it is. It's a different.
You talked about business profile.
No, it's in her website, correct, Susan?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
anytime you update your website, it's a good thing.
So it would be okay for me to upload a new picture every couple of weeks.
Sure, you can.
Okay, I just want to, you said that you get penalized by Google if you do something too much, or I don't remember the exact words, but I just wanted to make sure that if I do that, I'm not getting penalized for using the same word over and over, you know, the caricature.
No, you're not getting penalized for that sort of thing.
You know, you can post every day. Yeah, I mean, it's not a good idea to post every day, but you know, at least once a week, twice a week, twice a month, once a month. I mean, it really depends. It just all depends on how often you want Google to come back to your website.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's a few things in the chat I'd like to get to. Anybody else have a question before I do that? Oh, discountasp.net.
Richard makes a good point. The description is sometimes used for accessibility. Screen readers will use the image description to convey the context of the image for those with seeing disabilities. And yes, you are correct, but also you need title, or not title tags, but you need the title attributes for the images, and a lot of times the alt tags will take care of that. But yeah, I mean, with what's going on with the ADA being ADA compliant, yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to be sure you put that information in your images.
I hope everybody understands what he was saying, in that basically your alt tag and the description are for the vision impaired, and they use a reader to read everything on the page. There's no description of the image, it just says it's an image. That's bad, and I don't know how Google is looking at that for any kind of a ranking factor these days, but
They're not,
to me,
yeah.
last I heard it, it's making more prominence, but it may not be part of the algorithm.
It isn't yet. I mean, that's what's strange. You know, as far as I know, you know, I don't know if Google, it's not a ranking factor with in the algorithms, you know, but it's coming. I can guarantee it's coming,
Yeah,
because I mean, just in the past year, I've been seeing and hearing about a lot of people getting sued because their sites are not ADA compliant, you know, and they just come right out of the blue. Now, there's also a scam going around about that too, but
mhm.
you know, I mean, here anymore, if you have a website that's catered to disabilities or anything like that, and it's not in compliant, you know, anybody can sue you for not being disability ready.
Compliant.